Hey everyone, welcome to the Recruitment Show. We are talking about all of the major topics that people are discussing right now. Everything recruiting, future of work, and everything in between. I've got guests from all over the world to come and share their perspective and their thoughts and feelings and all of that stuff on these key topics. It might not be politically correct. It might not be what you want to hear, but it's people's perspectives, and it's important to hear people's perspectives. I love storytelling, and I think one story can illuminate a million more and really increase our understanding of these topics. So sit back, whether you're watching live or after, grab a drink, take a seat, and enjoy. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me, Alison and Jenni. I've got two of you today, which is awesome.
Nothing.
I know. I don't know what I've done to deserve
super
it.
one.
It's great fun. So thanks for joining me. I know you've both co-authored a book.
Yep.
Which is the context surrounding.
You might see it in the background.
Let's see. Show
in the background too.
Show us in the screen so I don't get your title wrong. How about that?
There we go.
Leading Edge. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. How was it writing a book? Like,
it was awesome, actually.
Else?
Yeah, it was. I'd highly recommend co-authoring a book with somebody else, especially Ali and I've got a very close partnership. We've worked together for years, known each other for many years before we worked together. So there's and also we've got very different but complementary styles. So
right,
you know, I think I know for sure that if I'd had to write this book on my own, it wouldn't be done.
Really?
It just probably wouldn't have appeared.
And likewise, I think it was a really fun, creative process. And when one person got a bit stuck, the other one could then just flow into it. And I think the idea is built as well. So it's not like we thought we had everything sorted when we started writing it, but actually the process itself really challenged our thinking and took us to the next level. So, and yeah, it was a really nice thing to do. So we've just finished writing the second manuscript. So
you've done another one.
We've got another one.
We've got
yeah.
Now, big question. Everyone, have you used AI to help you write your book?
Not this one. I don't think it was around really for this one, but the most recent one we've done. It's kind of, it gives you a bit of a head start, I think. AI, so it gives you a bit of a. It certainly doesn't write it in our style, though. That's the thing. So you probably get about 30% of it from AI, and then you have to really kind of hone the words.
Yeah. So you use it as a kind of like an editor, almost like kind of structure. Or not?
Yeah, structure.
Some of its editing's a bit weird. It comes up with some really funny vocabulary that we wouldn't use. That's not our style.
Quite
formal, actually, the style. I'm talking about ChatGPT here. I don't know about the others, but
I'm writing a book right now.
Are you? What are you writing?
The question with a co-author, no less. So it's been very interesting, and we live in different parts of the world. So we started out with video calls, transcribing conversations, writing, experimenting with all the different AI like editing tools and stuff. It's been a fascinating process and experience, and it crystallizes a lot of thoughts you have, right, about different stuff.
Something about putting on paper, right? It's just it's lovely. No,
it's incredible. I love it. Well done.
It really does get that thinking going, doesn't it? So that's where I think AI can be used to do a bit of editing or give some structure to start you off, but then actually the real thinking is where you add that value and you come up with your own original content.
No, definitely. I've got a friend of mine, I won't mention who he is. He's written loads of books, and his last couple of books, so he uses ChatGPT, I think, and he puts in his original thoughts about what he wants to write, and he gets it to write the first bit of the chapter, and then he goes in, he edits it, he makes it his style, tone, voice, all of that kind of stuff. And I mean, he's grinding out way more books now than he used to, and I think that's cool. It's an interesting moment in time, isn't it? Because there's probably still a feeling of, is that cheating, And I think very quickly that's moving to actually.
I think it's enhancing us, right? It's just speeding up a process.
Yeah.
I was talking to a university student yesterday. He was saying that, it just helps him find research, that he would have had to trawl through thousands of papers in order to find the right bit of research that's relevant to the dissertation that he's writing. But now all he says is, goes into Bard and says, give me 5 research papers that are relevant to this topic. Suddenly, he's got his
that's
not cheating. That's just getting the right research, isn't it? And
that's incredible.
Yeah,
no, because actually the one big thing is it's incredible at analysing text and giving you a summary. For sure, rather than writing stuff for you. I mean, obviously does that too, but just analysing lots amount of data.
Synthesizing something, summarizing 3 pages into 4 sentences. Love that.
Yeah.
Love it.
Leading in an AI age. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a whole change.
So much potential there. I think we're just scratching the surface of it. It's lovely.
No, I know. I want to ask you a bunch of questions, and I would given what I do exec search. I speak with leaders every day. There's so many interesting topics going on. And given what you guys do, I'd just love to pick your brains on some of the big questions that people are talking about and things like that. And I think a great place to start this is this remote work, hybrid, back to office. I read a poll recently, I can't remember if it was McKinsey or someone, that they polled CEOs, and by 2026, 90% of people that wanted people back in the office 5 days a week, which is interesting. And just kind of for leaders now, like navigating this, like kind of where are you at on it? Like what strategies do you think people can do to, because your thing's about high performing teams, right? And if you have people in all corners of the world, some are in, some are out, some don't want to go in, some do, like kind of where are you at on all of this stuff, and what can we do as leaders?
Well, when we started our business, we said we don't need an office. So that's for our personal business. We said we don't need an office. We don't need a building. Tech is there. It can support us. But that doesn't mean to say we don't want to be a high-performing team and we don't want to connect and to collaborate and do all of those. And we do all of those things. But we've put in place lots of routines to support us as a team to make sure that we have a lot of connection points, lots of communication, the tools that we use to make sure that a lot of the things that happen in offices happens to us remotely. And I think that's one of the reasons people want people back in offices is for the collaboration, the creativity that comes from, we wrote every word in those books together. And we did that because we spent time together. And I think that's one of the dangers of remote working is people become very isolated in rooms and just get on with their own little task. And then you end up with this silo organization. And that's not what people want.
That's true. What routines, you mentioned routine, like what good routines do you both do?
Well, leading a virtual team, because we probably get together maybe once a quarter in person, all of us. I mean, we make sure that we get together once a quarter. There's other opportunities for getting together, but it's few and far between. The norm is remote. We're all over the place. We're all so busy. We're off doing things in different client sites as well. So getting together actually in person regularly would be impossible. So a Monday morning is check-in. And half of that is, what did you do at the weekend?
So this is the whole team.
The whole team gets together. We chat about we build relationships. So if we were to write an agenda item for that, it would be relationship building.
Right. And is that like a just free flow?
Yeah. Well, we have a bit of a format for it, which is like, how was your weekend? What did you do? Each person says a bit about their weekend, and then we go into what's your week going to be like? But looking forward, as in what's going to be the highlight this week, and how's your workload this week? Is it red, amber, green? And how can the team support you? And if you're amber or red, is there something that we can do to support each other to just even that out a bit more if other people are green? Nice. So we have a really lovely conversation about that, and everybody shares how they're feeling about the work that they've got ahead of them this week and where the challenges might lie. We get to a Friday and we have a half an hour check-in. And we go highlight of the week. What was the highlight for the week? And you can't repeat. So if somebody else has said something you were going to say, you have to choose something else. So we fight over the highlights sometimes.
I love that. Now, what about for leaders that are leading not in a pure remote? So I love what you guys are doing. I do the same. Like my team's fully remote. Yeah. But for people that have some people remote, some in the office, there other kind of good routines that people can do?
I think as long as teams focus on both the relationships and the task, the temptation when you're remote is to be quite formal about things and to go, right, we can't do any of that relationship stuff because that's the kind of thing we do over a coffee or over lunch, outside of working hours, kind of, strictly speaking. But actually, relationship is the route to getting the task done well. So crafting your routine so that they build relationships, even if you're not physically located together. When you've got a hybrid team like that, you have to kind of put more effort into making those moments happen. So make it happen. Have a repeating agenda item to just talk about who you are as humans. It doesn't have to be for very long, but it just makes such a difference to those relationships that carry you through the rest of the week. So there's no kind of hard and fast rule about it, is there, Ali?
No. And so what you can do, and what we do sometimes when we're working with teams, is if some people are working from home and others are together in the office, so we've got a kind of hybrid mix going on, we'll get the people who are remote up on an iPad, and that way we can take them to the coffee break with us. And they come and they get their own coffee and they're there on the iPad, or they're walking around doing the activities with the people, but they're on an iPad. They're not on some fixed remote screen. And so it gives a sort of fluidity to it. So it takes a little bit more planning. But there's also a piece which is, even if you're remote, you're not left out, and you're not allowed to be let out either. We mandate video on all the time. My personal view is that if somebody hasn't got their video on, and maybe this is because that's what I would do, is I would go and do some other emails. I might pop out and talk to somebody. You're not actually fully present. And if you think about how we communicate as humans, we use the visual cues massively. More communication comes from looking at our faces and our bodies than it does from the actual words we use. So by not using the video, we're removing a whole communication mechanism from others. So we would say to people, you put it on. It doesn't matter if you've got a bad hair day or your house is a mess behind you. You can, cover that up. There's solutions for that. Nobody cares. They just want you. And that's the point of it.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And if you put it in the context of AI infiltrating everything, I think you need to work on your human skills, leaders, people coming up, getting your first lead. If you think about like the difference that makes a difference, like what makes that leader incredible? For me, it always boils down to human stuff. They're empathetic, they're kind, they communicate well, they're good at having conversations, which I think is different to communication. All of these little things, and the small thing of having your video on or off. I mean, like the impact or not you'll have on someone.
It's trust, actually. So, if you think about what we're missing when we're not physically together, it's much harder to build trust with each other. It's not impossible at all. We've done a brilliant job for years during pandemic. But we naturally, as human beings, we build trust when we're in proximity to each other. And the magic number is 2 meters. So if we are within 2 meters, this is what the research shows. I really fell off my chair when I found that research. I just thought the irony was just so beautiful.
It's maybe like just the energy surrounding us.
I know. And guess you think all that time we had to be more than 2 meters apart. It was like, ooh, that's a funny number.
Why trust has dropped, right? So and most workplaces don't have that luxury. Even if we're in the same building, we're not necessarily sitting next to each other. And so, or if we are all in the office 5 days a week, there's always somebody who's off on holiday, or out, whatever might be going on there. And so there's something about how do we still recreate those moments when we're virtual or in a hybrid environment? Have your camera on, because even if we still see head and shoulders, we can still see the micro expressions. We can still build more trust that way than we can if the camera's off. And it's just
I love that. I love that. Just for I think a lot of folks now, and I think in the next few months, 6 months, year, whatever, are going to have to get their team back in. Probably mandated, right? And you see it in financial services.
If I were them, I'd be really careful.
Let's just, the scenario is, right? What would you do, right? What would you do if your boss told you that you have to get your team back in, right? Now, let's say, you've been operating in the way you've just described. You've got a wonderful team. They're super happy with how you've built your kind of remote hybrid stuff. But it's 5 days in the week from January. How are you gonna, like, what's the best way to communicate that to your team and get them in and performing incredibly well?
I think it's a really hard message to sell, right? Because what we've shown is that we can do it. We can do it really well. In fact, productivity went up during the pandemic. It's something we've proven that we can do. What's the purpose of bringing people in 5 days a week? Is it about a lazy, dare I say it, management culture in that organization of I need to see people, they've got to be present, otherwise I think they're not working? So we both believe in some time in the office, absolutely, for exactly the reason that we've just talked about. Trust and collaboration is built through proximity. However, you mandate 5 days a week and suddenly you're forcing people to uproot the lives they've built for 2 or 3 years and to completely turn it around for actually kind of no real benefit. I don't know. I haven't seen any research that shows that we're better off being in the office 5 days a week.
Did you think it's pretty different?
I was going to say, I think there was initially a real upbeat in productivity when everybody went remote initially. And what we've seen is there's been a continuous decline in productivity ever since. So I think what happened is everybody worked like crazy I know we did, when the pandemic first hit, we were just like machines working non-stop from home. So you couldn't go to client sites and all of that. Yeah. And so, but then you get into routine. And I think some of the routines that we've put in place to enable team members to connect and to collaborate. And if you think about what a lot of those compassionate leaders did at the start of the pandemic, they had quiz nights, they had social events, they were sending cocktail sets to people. They were really building in a lot of social activities virtually. But what I see now is that rarely happens. So you end up with these disconnected people who are not going into the office, who are now working at home. And they're kind of like, I like my life here, but I'm also not getting the human stuff that we need. So I do understand organizations saying you need that. But to Jenni's point, it's a management issue. It's much, I've seen teams who are in one office and they never speak to each other anyway. I mean, you can have geographical barriers, in the same floor, let alone, remotely across country or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think also if you're having this kind of conversation, I mean, remember a lot of people have to go in, doctors, nurses, etc.
Yeah, plenty of people.
But in terms of like kind of, white collar, or where you can do a job remotely, I think it's wonderful. But the fact is,
they're going in.
If you look forward a year or two, if these polls are true, and if the trends that we're seeing end up materializing, and hey, the wind changes quickly, so you never know. But we might be in the scenario where most people doing an office type of job are going to have to either go in 5 days a week or go find another job.
Yeah.
The research also shows, however, even though the CEOs want them back in, if the research also shows people don't want to be in 5 days a week.
Well, that's the thing.
Most is 3.
The most is 3. Interesting.
Most is 3. The average is 3. And people want to be in sometimes, but they also want to have that flexibility to be able to go drop their kids off at school, pick them up. The life that we have crafted over the last 3 years, we like that flexibility. Yeah.
So for leaders, it's going to be tough, right? I mean, if you go one level below the board, if you go one level below the board, let's say, right, and the board for whatever reason has decided you've got to be in or you're out. And I've got a few friends in the city, they have to tap in now, right? So you tap in to go to your big building, and they've got to be, with one friend of mine, he's got to be in 4 days a week, and they measure it by when he taps in and taps out and stuff like this. But and if he doesn't do 4 days a week, at least he gets the phone call from HR. Hey, what happened this week? But anyway, if you're level or 2 below, and let's say like us, we're kind of like, we're into flexibility, hybrid and whatever, but you have to lead your team and they have to be in 5 days a week. How are they going to do it? How are they going to build this high performing team of people? Are they going to just naturally lose folks and then hire people that want to come in 5 days?
Find the people that want to be in the office. There are people out there. I've got friends who love being in the office. That's what they. But then they get disappointed because they go in and nobody's there. So then they kind of spending less time in the office, it becomes this kind of vicious cycle, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest piece there for me is the compelling why. What are we trying to create here that is the compelling reason for us all to spend that much time in the office? And how are we going to craft our routines so that the time we do spend together in the office is really valuable, awesome time that we wouldn't be able to create in another scenario? So that if you create the why really well, you'll get the people, and you have to craft a team so that you've got the people who want to be in the office. I think diversity will suffer though, as a result.
I think so. I mean,
my hypothesis.
Go on, Alison.
Well, I was going to say, I also think there's something about high performing teams, which is easier to do when you have everybody face to face. I mean, we've talked about how, we do it, but you have to be very, very intentional. And sometimes it feels a bit clunky, but, and you have to do even more virtually than you would ever do in a face-to-face environment. But I think the leader really does need to connect with everybody about not just what's in it for the team and the organization from them being in there. So we need to get cost efficiencies of using this building, and we think that we'll be more creative here, but how is that actually going to happen, and what's in it for the individuals? Because there's already it's going to cost me more to come into work than to stay at home, and I'm now going to spend more on my lunch, and there's all of those kind of things, and I would have liked to have popped out to the gym at lunchtime, and that's not. So there's lots of negatives. So how do they build in a why for the individual that overcomes that actually I really like being with my co-workers, because just as we talked about how much we enjoy working together, it's a creative, powerful process, and we learn, and those are the things that make a day really worthwhile. You come back and you say, I love working with those people, I'm really proud of what we've done, and these are more than just any old colleagues. These are great colleagues. So we have to build that to get people to be leaping up and ready to go into work every day and say, I want to be in the office because I don't want to let my team down. And we also know it builds resilience as well in individuals. That community of knowing you're supported and that people are there and have got your back. And your work team is a support community, but it's often overlooked. I mean, we talk about, we've got organizational resilience with, cash flow plans and so on. We also have individual, mental health support in organizations. But actually, the team is a massive support network for everybody. And that needs to be really harnessed.
True. Jenni, you're going to say something?
I was going to say, but if you're bringing people in arbitrarily and they're spending all of their time on virtual calls with other people outside of the team and rarely collaborate with each other, you're pushing water uphill. They're just going to sit there and go, I had a conversation with someone yesterday. She said, I made a choice not to be in the office today because I have virtual calls all day. Like, why would I be in the office? Why would I make that 2-hour commute to go into the office, battling through the rain and the traffic and public transport, putting my kids in childcare before school and after school so that I can do it just to be on virtual calls all day?
Yeah, it's true. I think we've got kind of two things almost here, haven't we? We've got people that are already in your team that you're asking them to change their lives. And then you've got recruiting new people in. And for me, like, the whole thing boils down to communicating, right? Like, I mean, I'm going to use Elon Musk as a good example. If you want to go work at X, it's 24/7 in the office, right? Or you go work at a big bank and you're going to give like incredible amount of time to it. Yeah, 24/7, right? But I'm really cool with that because where you stand, and it's about finding the right job for the right person, and there's a place for everyone in this world, right? And either you're really cool with going in 5 days a week and working 60 hours, 70 hours a week, or you're not. And I think for me, it's just really important for companies, hiring managers, whatever, just to communicate, this is really what it's like here. Is that for you or not? Yeah. And then you're kind of at I think you're at a good moment there.
Everyone's got choice, right? Organizations got choice, and there's consequences to those choices. We as individuals have choice as well, right? We make the choice about the lifestyle we want. Luckily, we have choice. The great thing about a virtual workplace is the world's your oyster. You can work anywhere in the world. So that opens up your opportunities massively.
Sure. So then for you as an individual looking for a job, make sure you interview the companies properly. Like,
totally.
What environment is good for me? And then you can start to choose, because there's a lot, as you know, there's a lot of choice around. And so it's important. I think both sides, it's really important. I want to just moving on to this. Last year has been very difficult for many people. For me, it's been, I say my word of the year has been stodgy. Like some industries have done well, some haven't. There's been redundancies in some industries have been hiring like crazy. But there's just an awful lot of people that have lost their jobs, have been made redundant. And then interestingly, you have this kind of, I love all these little buzz phrases, but these boomerang employees that you're starting to see companies that have made people redundant in difficult times trying to hire them back when they're going. So it's just kind of really interesting scenario. And just if think about it from the context of leaders, any advice for leaders that are leading a team which is having people being made redundant, coming, there's all this change and just disruption, and you can imagine the vibe in a team like that. Like, have you worked with people that have been going through that, and is any advice you can give?
I think that one of our phrases is teams are dynamic. They're changing all the time, regardless of redundancy programs happening. The makeup of the people are joining, leaving, and then you add in organizational restructures into that mix, and you add a layer of complexity and ambiguity that teams have to learn how to deal with, right? To remain high performing despite that all happening around them. So there's something about how do you create a team that is ready for that, is anticipating change, is seeing it coming, even if they don't know quite what it is exactly. They know that something's going to impact this team and how we work. In 6 months' time, how do we get ready for that? How do we make sure we've got the resilience in the team, the energy levels to be able to withstand that we're not shocked and then to stop working because we can't keep going. So I think the role of the leader in all of that is really important. Ali, I'm sure you've got something to add to this.
Yeah, and I would also say that often the whole of it falls on the shoulders of the leader. And we would suggest that a high-performing team, actually the whole team feels a sense of ownership for it, and also a sense of empowerment that they can influence a lot of what's happening. And so, anticipating what's coming and what would be the best way for the team to manage that some people might have to leave, or some people might then come back as a boomerang. How do they manage that whole process and not leave it, it's an ecosystem, so not get scarred by it and have issues. So being really transparent, but also not waiting for them up there to sort it out. It's like we can do things within this team environment that means that we can get, what we need out of this so that we can perform well and feel good about it too.
Yeah. I had a CEO when I worked at Vodafone. My CEO in New Zealand used to call people who left the organisation, they're just going on external training. They'll be fine. Nice. I loved it. I love that approach, that attitude. It's like, it's okay if they go. They'll come back because we're an awesome place to work. And they want to be part of this team. It's just the right opportunity is not there for them right now. So they're going to go off to the competitor. They're going to get some training there. They're going to come back.
Love that. Always leave a job gracefully.
Exactly. And help others exit gracefully too. So, how you behave as a leader, I think, is really important in all of that too. So they want to come back, right? There's no burn bridges here.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. It's like if you're in a team, take ownership and responsibility, and put yourself out there. I think what's also very interesting for me is leadership's quite a lonely place, and like you're the person that people are looking up to, and it's like, who does the go-to person go to when things get tough? And you saw it a lot over the last few years where people looked to the leader for the answers, and people were leading in a very unique time, like no one had been through these kind of things before. And so I think it's now getting more and more accepted that leaders seek help wherever it might be from, but speaking with people and speaking out. It's great that we're starting to talk more about burnout and all of this, like mental health and it's all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's really important to do as a leader. Otherwise, it just gets very heavy very quickly.
Yeah. But I think leaders underestimate often how much their team can take on. And part of it is also reluctance to let go. So we know that, control is a difficult one. How much do you let go? Who do you let go to? All of those. But actually, I think most leaders hire great people, and their teams are full of amazing, high caliber, wonderful people who could do so much more. and who would like to do more. And, you know, so if stuff is delegated down to them, it's not all on the leader. So that would be my challenge. And I think it's one of the things that leaders really need to challenge themselves with is, why am I the bottleneck for decision making? Why is everything getting escalated up to me? How much am I forcing that? And wouldn't it be great if I empowered the team to get on with it? And I don't need to know all the answers. In fact, I don't. So let's be a bit more humble, be a bit more transparent, vulnerable, whatever it is with the team. But, you know, you can still say, I'm the leader, I have a special role here, but let's do this together. And I think that's what we're trying to work with teams to do, so that, you know, we say, you're all in this together. The leader's a special role. They get more resources and they've got a bit more influence and all of that kind of thing. But actually, to achieve the results of the team, you all need to be involved in that. And so what can the rest of you take on?
Absolutely. And you can be a leader at any stage of your career.
Exactly.
You really can. The big thing for me about leadership is moving from I to we. You know, like, so much of your success early on in life is about me, right? Education, early on in your career, it's an individual contributor a lot of the time. If you can move from I to we early, it's a wonderful place to be at. Very difficult to do.
Yeah, we call it collaborative leadership. You know, we talk about going from me to we. So it says very similar concept. Oh, right. Like you've read my next book, Lewis. But I think there's something there about not trying to be this hero, you know, and battling on through by yourself. You know, create that support network, and the support network can be your team, but it's also going to be elsewhere as well, isn't it? It's going to be peers. It's going to be a coach, maybe. It's going to be, you know, other support mechanisms.
Your own boss, you know.
Yeah.
One hopes.
Yeah. It's good to share stuff too. It's you don't have to, as a leader, just be the stoic caricature, you know, it's all good and I'm super strong. And
that's not very authentic either. It's not very human. You know, you're not role modeling great behaviors if you're just trying to keep it all together and not kind of, you know, go anywhere else with that.
Yeah. I want to end with quite a big one, and this is quite interesting. I mean, I think that the world is super polarized right now. Well, it certainly seems so, especially if you're scrolling through Instagram, you know, all the social media stuff, right? There's just a lot going on the planet right now. And I always find the interesting thing is, you know, there's a context as well of, there's so much conversation about bring your authentic self to work, belonging, all of these kinds of things, right? And in the context of work, it always feels like, you know, bring your authentic self to work as long as you believe what I believe. Otherwise, keep that bit at home. And just a lot of stuff. And also, as humans, it's very difficult to work with people in a high-performing team that you fundamentally disagree with on stuff. And being the leader, trying to build a high-performing team of, you know, and we all know, right? Like, diverse teams are wonderful, brings different options, decisions. People are coming from all parts of the world. Perspectives are different. It's an amazing thing. Also very difficult to lead. What have you seen kind of like people do in that regard? Any advice? Would you just avoid difficult subjects altogether? Just bring a little bit of yourself to work? Like, kind of what are your kind of thoughts on it all?
Well, we're all really complex. So there's lots of things to all of us. And I think one of the things that joins us together is our similarities. That's what we look for. That's what makes us feel safe. What makes us feel safe is the differences. So we need to help people see the similarities between us, and find some of those common goals, that common purpose that we've got, you know, that we can share. And then to start to understand how our differences are actually really interesting. They're not threatening. They're more information. They're another way to look at the world. And so, you know, it can be really mind-blowing when you meet someone who's got a completely polar opposite view to you, and you think, how could you believe that? You know, where does that come from? But the minute you start asking questions and become curious about it, you can open up discussions and understanding. You might still have very different views about how you want things to go, but you can start to appreciate the differences and how that then gives us another way to look at the world. And I think, but we need to build it on a foundation of understanding we've got some things in common.
Yeah.
The foundation is trust, first of all, and high performing teams do this really well. It's a really hard skill to learn, though, because we're taught the opposite. We're taught, you have to make an argument, and you have to, and there's a winner and a loser.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm right and you're wrong. And actually, that's not appropriate in a high performing team. There's no right or wrong here, because we're solving problems that have never been solved before. We're making decisions that are really complex, that have never been made before. So actually, who knows what the right answer is, right? You can't polarize it like that, because otherwise you'll end up, making the wrong decision or watering something down too much. So, a high performing team that does constructive conflict really, really well is rare, first of all. And it's rare because they've had to learn how to do it. First of all, they've had to build up enough trust, psychological safety to be able to do that. And then they have to invite in difference of opinion. They have to say,
safe space
Lewis, I know that you think really differently about the world than me. I'd love to hear what you think about this idea that I've got, because I know you'll help me to just think differently. I might completely fundamentally disagree with everything you say, but it will spark a thought for me. Yeah. And then somebody else will build upon it even more. And then, so nobody in a high performing team has the idea and executes on it by themselves. It's not possible.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
I love that.
Got to have other people involved in it. And so in order to make that happen, you have to have that constructive challenge and conflict.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said it earlier. It's, we haven't really been taught that. And you're right. So much of growing up is
debate classes. If you think about it, people go, I used to do debate class. No, that's one side versus another, and one's going to win.
It's a win-lose all the time.
Yeah,
always win-lose, right? It's always this is my argument. I'm trying to convince you I'm right, and boom, that's it. Kind of thing. And for me, it's it also boils down to kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, which is conversation. Yeah. And the biggest part of conversation is listening, but listening to understand, not listening to respond. Yeah. Yeah. If I'm arguing and try to convince you that I'm right, I'm just going to listen to respond. I'm like, okay, Jenny, whatever. Actually, this is how it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But such an amazing skill is listening to understand. And once you understand, and you have a cup of tea with someone, and you're asking questions, and you're genuinely interested in what their perspective is, then you can actually start to find some kind of appreciation, middle ground. It doesn't have to be aggressive.
Yeah.
So much of these things are quite aggressive. It's very
absolutely. Yeah.
I vote for this party, you vote for that party. There's no middle ground, and that's it. But it doesn't have to be like that.
Absolutely. And what we've seen the highest performing teams is proactive inclusion of others. So they'll proactively seek opinions, and they'll proactively seek the opinions they know are going to be so different from theirs, because it makes for better decision making.
Yeah.
Again, we're not taught to do that. We're taught, like, you don't go and ask somebody who might have a different opinion from you about what they think. You go and seek out agreements, or you try to change somebody's mind. It's different, isn't it? Right?
You go and try and get a group together. There's most of us believe this, so this is the way we're going to go.
Really different way of thinking, isn't it? So we've got to all change our perspective in order to lean into that a lot more.
Yeah. There was a good article I read about. I think it was a McKinsey article, and they talked about kind of sparring, or like conversational sparring. Yeah. So like we have an idea. Maybe we want to follow a new strategy, whatever it might be, and we all discuss one idea together. Yeah. Then we'll talk about the other idea. We'll talk about the positives for one, dangers for the other, whatever. We're all thinking together. There's a guy called Edward de Bono. He's an English guy. You read it. I don't know if you girls know.
Six thinking hats.
That's it. So we put the same hat on, and we blue sky thinking, and then red hat, dangers, and such a wonderful way to go about it, rather than. And then suddenly we've all decided to do this, and everyone's behind the idea, and there's no one feeling left out and annoyed and
leaning into something, right? That's a little bit uncomfortable. It can get a bit crunchy sometimes. People get into arguments as well, but as long as you've got the level of trust that's needed to come back from that, and you've got some mechanisms for bringing it back, you'll be fine. I think it's just such a powerful tool that not enough
teams sometimes get teams to practice doing different roles, and they take turns, so they don't sort of
devil's advocate role, for example. One person take on devil's advocate, take the completely opposite view than anybody else will in this team, and be the devil in this.
It's a good way to do it, even just for yourself.
Just to play with it, and see what happens.
And let people know that's what you're doing.
Somebody who takes on the role of your toughest stakeholder or your toughest client, they're going to be them for the next 10 minutes. And what would they say if they were here about this particular idea that we've got? How would they behave? What would their opinion be? How critical might they be? And because you're playing with it, it doesn't matter. It's not you that's having those opinions. It's your persona. So that can be fun too.
Yeah. I love that. I want to ask you just thoughts on a poll I did recently, just to end off. And the contest was a client of mine. He's a leader. He hired someone, and it turns out about a year and a half later that they lied on their CV, and they said they had a degree, and they didn't have a degree. It turns out this person's it's a sales role, and this person's now the best performing salesperson in the team. How would you go about doing it? Context wise, I did a poll. So I'm clicking my poll now. We had a 63% of people say let them stay.
Well, that's interesting. That same result is more important than integrity.
What would you do?
Well, it depends on your values. My values are integrity is up there. And if somebody lies to me, then, and I tolerate that. And I say, because you're my highest performing salesperson, I'll let you stay despite the fact that you've lied about that. What else have you lied about is the thought that's going on through my head. Everyone in the team will be thinking what else they're lying about.
Yeah.
I think what you're doing is you're undermining your own values. What you're saying is actually my integrity is not as important as the sales that we make. Yeah. So I believe performance is about two things. It's about the results that you deliver consistently, but it's also how you get there, and your behaviors on a day-to-day basis. If we say that that's okay, we're saying the results are far more important than the how. We're actually saying that's not very important at all. I don't, Ali, what do you think? This is my opinion, not yours.
No, I agree with you. I think that nobody will ever trust that individual. I mean, you will keep them for the sales, but did they really get them? How did they get them? What else are they lying about? And maybe they've never lied about anything ever since, because, why do you need a degree? They've proven you don't. Well, are they really doing it? I think that lack of trust that will exist throughout would be the problem.
It's like Suits in real life, isn't it? You watch Suits?
Harvey.
He lied about his degree, didn't he? Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you both. I think the way you behave, you've got to look at yourself in the mirror. I think it's really important.
And as leaders, we have to say whether that's okay or not. We're role modeling our values. We can't say to our people ever again, don't lie about anything, because we've just tolerated somebody lying really fundamentally on their CV. Like anybody else lies again and we pull them up for it, then we've got no leg to stand on anymore.
Yeah.
Because we've already broken that rule. So it depends what your values are. If you don't talk about integrity and honesty is not important to you, then by all means. But if that's something that's important to you and the team and the organization, you've got to live it, haven't you? 100%.
And for the individual too.
Go on.
I was just going to say, for the individual too, who, they'll know deep down that they lied. And so that's not a very strong place to be on which to build on. Yeah. So
no, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
There's your values.
Even if, I know, look, for some people it's pretty tough. You get passed over, you miss out on job opportunities and, all of those kind of things. And it's difficult. And I also appreciate, economics plays a part, and, you need work and things like that. So, but I still think you've got to behave in the right way.
Yeah.
And you've got to go about things correctly, and you'll get there. You'll get the opportunity. Once you get the opportunity, you go all in, and good things happen.
I fundamentally believe that good people eventually, it's a hard slog. There's no doubt about it. It's a very competitive market out there to get jobs. But really think about the messaging, what you're really wanting, why you want this, and demonstrate, to Jenni's point, your values. What kind of person are you? Not just how much results you are. So they're not just getting somebody who delivers work and the results. They're also getting the right kind of person that would fit in that organization. And convincing people that way would be a much more ethical, integrity-loaded mechanism.
True. Thank you both for joining.
It's been fun.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure. So is your book on Amazon?
It is indeed.
Yes.
Is that the best
all
place
the
to go?
bookstores, WH Smith, Waterstones, Forbes, it's out there. And of course, good old Amazon.
Done. Cool. Thank you so much. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. And see you both again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do not forget to subscribe in all the usual places: YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you like to watch or listen to a podcast. Any comments or feedback, please drop us a DM. If you've got anything that you want us to discuss, again, feel free to get in touch. Have a wonderful day.